Greetings again, fellow football managers, and welcome again to Sheffield United. As you can see, we are standing in the club's locker room with a picture on the top right of not our tactics, but it is time to tell you about my little rebuild project. I'm through one season. I just wanted to share it with you, partly from a story perspective, but also from a tactical perspective, because we've taken control of one of the worst teams in the league, and we're going to see what we can try and do with them. What on earth is going on with this manager? I have actually taken a picture of this guy and fed it into the Football Manager 2024 3D picture analysis thing, which you can then use to generate the manager, and I've tried to match the color scheme. Why have I done this? My kids bombard me with it all the time, and also I am an idiot. Let's go in. So first things first, we have played this season in real world mode, which means we've done all of the real transfers at the real times that happened to Sheffield United this season, so we've tried to stay as close as possible to real life. Obviously, once you start the game and then you have training sessions and matches, players can get injured and stuff like that. So, for example, Chris Basham hasn't had that horrible injury that he did in real life. That said, I haven't really played him that much in this game. You can see on the bottom left where we have finished. In 38 games in the Premier League, we have accrued 49 points, which is decent. For me, this is a B season. We finished in 10th place. If you look at the points totals, we are kind of comfortable. The top 9 are 60 plus. We've got 49. 11th place has 48. And then 12 and below have 39 and below. So 10 and 11, kind of the dead mid-table teams, have been in a bit of a big gap. There's a lot of space there between the 61 and the 39. I have a feeling that that actually played a role in a lot of the results. If we just go in there, we didn't have a great end to the season. As you can see, lots of reds and yellows and things like that over here to finish the season. I was trying some new tactics during that period, kind of forward planning. So that's part of it. But there's also, I think, the fact that the players weren't really motivated. There wasn't really much to win at that stage of the season, because our place, it was going to be either 10th or 11th. Nothing much was going to change from that point. Stats-wise, our top scorer has been Cameron Archer. If you look at him, development has been pretty good. Statistically, he stands out as a fairly fast finisher. What he has is that 16 finishing. He starts the game with 15 composure as well. His decision-making is not abysmal. It's not brilliant, but it's not abysmal. And his off the ball is, I think, 13 to start or 14 to start, which is absolutely fine for the Premier League. And I've actually talked about benchmarking before in a lot of my videos, and really that has come into play with this Sheffield United save, with 14 being very functional and anything above 14 actually being usable and really standing out. And Cameron Archer's 16 acceleration and 16 finishing, 15 composure have really stood out, because every time he got himself a chance and he had a moment to kind of think about it, a little bit of space, he very reliably put the ball away. The problem is, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, Premier League, 22 appearances, 6 off the bench. That is nowhere near 38, so he missed 10 games. And those 6 sub-appearances where he was kind of building fitness and rhythm as well, so he wasn't fully fit. So he only managed about 60% of the season, really, because he kept getting struck down with injury. That was a big problem for me. Otherwise, he was really one of the top players of this season. Probably the fans' player of the year, either him or Tom Davies, but we'll get to that in a second. Tom Davies, obviously, free transfer from Everton. He's come in with the highest average rating. If we just look at him a little bit, agility is quite high, so he can kind of get to the ball fairly quickly. Anticipation 14 as well, so he's able to read where the ball is going. Tackling 14 as a ball winner. Teamwork 15, work rate 15. Stamina 17, aggression, bravery 15, 16 as well. So in terms of being a ball winner with determination 14 too, he was very, very solid in that role. To be fair, I played him as a carrilero, not really a ball winning midfielder. I will show you the tactics in a little bit. Also, interestingly, he has dictates tempo. I can't quite remember if he picked it up during the season. Quite a few of my players did, because we have senior players who have that trait. All in all, though, Tom Davies was a standout member of the midfield. Once he got in, he was very, very solid, and he actually scored a bunch of goals. Amusingly, he scored 4 goals in this season. 2 of them were against Everton. That is exactly the kind of thing we like to see in a narrative sense. I think both of them were in the same game too. We'll get into that in a little bit. Lastly, George Baldock was the kind of guy I was trying to build this team around. His mentals are very, very good. When you see mentals of kind of that 12, 13, and above consistently across the board, plus very good supporting physicals of 14s with the pace and so on, 15 stamina, then you've got 12 jumping, which isn't bad, and then his technicals aren't great, but they aren't bad either. Kind of 12 is okay. It's a minimum level of performance for me for the Premier League, that 12. For me, George Baldock, and in real life as well, he looks like a little bit of a cut above the rest of this team, and I wanted to build my team around him. And he came out and he did the job. He's got 6 assists. He was our best creative player, basically. Let's get into the schedule just a little bit. Look at those results. We started the season off, I've showed you this before, just the start of the season, with a draw against Aston Villa and a loss against Nottingham Forest. At this point, I decided I needed a slight change of tactics. I went from a low block to a mid block. I figured let's just use the mid block. Low block, we're just inviting way too much pressure on ourselves and we don't have enough coverage. I felt like with a low block, I needed to use something like a 4-5-1 flat or a 4-4-2 flat or something like that. I wasn't doing that. I was actually giving space away in certain parts of the pitch, which wasn't quite good in a low block. So I switched to a mid block. Immediate effectiveness. Just switching to mid block helped me win 4 games in a row. To be fair, one of them was against Barrow and the performance wasn't great, but the Brentford win was good, the Luton Town win was good, Crystal Palace was a fantastic win. Let's take a look at some of those goals. Brentford was our best performance of the season. Let's watch them. As you can see, we kind of FM'd them a little bit. They had more XG, but our performance was good and we held the ball a little bit more. This is a first glance at our tactics. We are using a 4 at the back, 4 in the middle, but it's a central kind of overload the middle kind of tactic with 2 men up top. Let's watch the goals. So against Brentford, we started off with a little bit of a set piece. We've talked about set pieces before, link up here. We then got a penalty because we put so much pressure in the box. We won a foul in there. Brentford then came back. Again, a little bit of a set piece and the follow-up from that, good finish by Schade. And another set piece, a throw in, and we all know what's going to happen here. Nørgaard puts it in, edge of the box, long shot, bang. However, we were able to find the winner. At this point, we switched into an attacking tactic. I got Bogle on his fresh legs, lots of pressure on the goalkeeper, job done. So after that quick run of 4 wins, we went and had a loss against Fulham. This was a very, very tight game. Let's have a quick look at it. As you can see, I was okay with this because we got 62% of possession and 1.6 XG versus Fulham's 38 and 1.28. Very much in FMing. The problem here is we lost Ollie Norwood very early in the second half. We still dominated the game. We kept possession. We attacked them a lot, but we couldn't quite get that second goal because of the one-man deficit. After that, we took a 2-0 win against Arsenal, which was, I think, the biggest win of the season for us. And I think I showed you that in my last video on set pieces, how Arsenal take set pieces. The recurring theme here is that we've been doing really well in home games. We've been competitive, but not quite getting over the line in away games. This one against Liverpool was very, very fun because it looked like we were holding out. Liverpool were dominating us left and right. Liverpool were one of my bogey teams, not because I like them, but because they're just good. And they did a real-life thing by scoring in the last kick of the game. Let's have a look at that goal as well. Again, it's a corner kick. Mo Salah takes one to the edge. Jones controls it and then hammers one home. 93.5 minutes on the clock. As you saw, the game lasted only 94. Actually, I don't know whether you saw that or not, but the game was basically done at 94. So that was really last kick of the game and heartbreak. We lost a point at Anfield. I don't think we can complain too much about that. That's what Liverpool do. However, we knew that we put up a gutsy performance against Liverpool. We went and we beat Bournemouth. We beat Wolves. Then we went to Burnley and drew away from home. That is when things started getting bad a little bit. We lost to Brighton at home. To be fair, this was an okay game. We were kind of holding confidence. We were quite happy with how things turned out. As you can see, the game was fairly even. Brighton probably edged it from the stats up here on the left-hand side. XG-wise, Brighton, I don't know if they deserved the 2-1 win, but they did get it. Then we went to probably our second or third tonking of the season. We went to West Ham and got thrashed 4-1. But we pulled it back. At home, again, we were turning our ground, Bramall Lane, I think it's called, into a fortress. Chelsea were not able to score against us. We went to Tottenham and lost. That was fine. 2-1 away at Tottenham is absolutely fine. And then this absolute beauty against Everton. To be fair, we were in the middle of a really tough run of games. Brighton, as I showed you before, they were second in the league at the time, I think. So they were really in form. And then obviously you have Chelsea, Tottenham, Everton, City, United, Newcastle all in a row. That was a really tough December. And I was actually happy to come out of it with a win and 3 draws. Let's take a look at that Everton game. Absolute magic. So here we go. I think I'm in a bit of trouble because Everton score first. Last kick of the first half, Dwight McNeil. I thought it was offside. It wasn't. We got a penalty then as we came out charged up. In the second half, Ollie Norwood puts it away. And then this thing of beauty. Hammer from the left, passes it in, and Davis, the former Everton man, blasts in a winner on the 69th minute. Nice. As you can see, he was well up for it, and he finished this match against his home club with an 8.9 match rating. To be fair, we deserved this completely. If you look at the left-hand side there, XG 2.68 versus 1.03, and we had 65% possession of the ball. For this area, I made another tactical change. I brought my tempo 1 slot lower. Let me just go back up there to show you the December run. Here it is again. Yep, I brought my passing tempo 1 slot lower to try and increase possession. And in my view, that's what got me a couple of these 0-0 draws against good teams. We drew against Manchester United at home, for example. We didn't provide too much on attack. If I just go into the stats here, you can see Manchester United were a lot better. They had 1.54 XG and didn't score, but we were able to be kind of solid in defense and keep the ball, slow the game down, not let them hit us on the transition with all of their pace. So December was an absolute killer, and we were exhausted coming out of that December period. We had accrued even more injuries. I went through, I think, the first 6 months of this season with about 8 guys out, so it was constantly a rotating belt of players coming in and out with injury. We went to Grimsby in the FA Cup third round, and oh boy, this is what happened. So Grimsby on the ball, first of all, they started hot. They came out at us, they attacked, and they were able to put lots of pressure on our 6-yard box, scoring 1 goal. That way, we got a penalty coming back, so we were able to put that away for the equalizer. I was pretty confident, but Grimsby, every time they got on the ball, they looked good. That said, I got even more confident at this point, because with a little bit of a high press, we were playing an attacking tactic against them, by the way. We were trying to press high, given the difference in quality, but they were able to carve through us. Their possession game was just really, really good, and they created really good chances, and it seemed like they couldn't miss. I then scored from a corner kick with Chris Basham, and I was getting a little bit embarrassed that I needed a penalty and then a corner kick to actually get ahead of them once more, but here they come once more. Into the 6-yard box, goal again from Ainley. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, we need to be really, really solid here. So actually drop the tempo a little bit, drop to balanced, and boom, wonder goal. What can you do about that? Looking at the stats up there, Grimsby actually get 4 goals with an XG of 1.76, and they lost the possession battle as well. So, you know what? Sometimes you are just on the end of it when a team is that confident. As you can see with shot conversion as well, we did really badly in terms of getting shots on target. We scored from 3 out of our 4 shots. And that possibly was part of the 2 strikers who actually played this game. It was Asula and Jebison who started off. They're kind of the younger players in the Sheffield squad. So I did rotate. In fact, all of these players were a rotational team. So it's kind of giving them a chance to play for their first team spot. In the end, it was only Bogle who impressed me enough. Even though he had a 6.6, he was able to really fly down that right-hand side and give me an idea that he could be useful in that first 11. What Grimsby gave me, though, was a really good opportunity to give my team a bollocking. I criticized the hell out of them after that loss, and we turned it around. Again, we went to Brentford this time, and this was one of our best away performances in the whole season. If you look at the stats there, Brentford had no chance. Our first team was fired up. They were a bit fitter because they had had the break at Grimsby. I think there was a little time off as well in there, and we absolutely hammered the pants off of Brentford. Let's take a look at the goals. So it starts off with a corner kick, delivery to the front post, gets cleared, Davis then with the pass. Hammer is fantastic with long shots, which is why he was playing most of the season as well on the left-hand side of my midfield. Then we played through. That's McAtee as the central midfield attack. That's something that happens in this version of FM, but as you saw, Archer had a moment to think about his finish. He had time and space. He made no mistakes all season when he was in situations like that. Last goal was Brooks on the left-hand side. Cross into the 6-yard box, and then it's about who gets the ball first. Boom. So after Brentford, we had another big win against Luton. Luton were further down in the table. That was one of the games where I figured I should be able to try and win. Crystal Palace was the same, but they were able to hold us. And then we got thrashed by Liverpool as usual. Fulham, then we went and we beat them 3-0. So this one in the second half. First half was 0-0. I was very happy with what I was seeing. I just told my team to go ahead and try and do more of it. Davis with the shot. His flair, I think he has a flair attribute of 14, and he was using that actually to pull out a couple of really good long shots, even though he has long shots of 7. And then he dribbles into the box and pulls that off. So this is actually the game where he scored a double in, and he put us in a long distance ahead of Fulham. They had no chance. And then Davis again with a chance. Essentially, it could have been a Davis hat-trick, but Osula was there to tidy things up. Fantastic performance from Davis, and I think that's why he's probably our fans' player of the year this season. So after that Fulham win, we were kind of establishing our place in kind of 9th, 10th, 8th, 7th. I think 7th was the top we got to in the league this season, but then those results like getting beaten by Liverpool, getting beaten by Villa up here, all of these losses and then the occasional losses, for example, this Bournemouth loss was a little bit unexpected. Those were costing us points and keeping us stranded kind of mid-table. I would have liked to convert those losses into draws and the draws into wins. That would have made me think that was an A season, but I think a 10th place finish for Sheffield is completely fair. Arsenal, we were able to absolutely do them. We stole a draw against them. Let's have a look at the goals. I thought we were really in for it because Arsenal was starting really strong. They were getting forward and kind of first to every ball, as you could see, and then Odegaard puts it away. So in the second minute or the third minute, Arsenal go ahead. I think we're in trouble. But then we responded. We had a 10-minute phase of attack, and we were able to pull that off. Obviously, you've probably seen that goal before. That was the throw-in and the cross to the far post. And Osula is a pretty good aerial player. He's got 12 jumping, decent aggression, bravery, work rate, teamwork, decent strength. Heading isn't great at 10, but that's okay because those other stats are there. So he could actually score a couple of headers now and then. You can also see here that I'm holding a lot of results against much better teams and a lot of XG. Games against Arsenal like that, they were able to get a lot more XG than they were able to convert. And that is part of my formation and tactics, which I'll get to in just a second. Just to finish off the story of the season, we finished off by kind of losing against Bournemouth, as I mentioned, but we then turned up. We made another slight change of tactics, and it worked straight away. We thrashed Wolves 3-0. This was another fantastic performance, and a lot of them start really early. We've got Low at left back, ball cleared, Norwood. Look at this one. Have a look at this. Bang. That set the tone for the game because then we were just all over Wolves. They were struggling. They've actually had a pretty bad season as well. And Archer, again, has half a second to think about it, puts it away. Finally, icing on the cake, a penalty, and Ryan Brewster slots it. Quick look at the stats, though. This was really impressive, and I showed it to you because we had 66% possession, 1.72 XG, so maybe the 3 goals wasn't quite deserved. But look at Wolves. They had 0.02. They only managed 2 shots and 1 on target. So we were really controlling the game, and those are the kind of performances I wanted to see from Sheffield United. Sheffield United. So I was really, really happy with that. Even though we finished 10th, I was able to get that kind of performance out of them. Then we visited Burnley. We gave them an absolute spanking. Let's have a look. This was a Cameron Archer masterclass. As you can see, we've got a throw in, but this one's going to build up a little bit. We're in normal shape now. Low with the through ball. Again, he's got a second to think, and he doesn't make a mistake. That's the advantage of having a really good finisher, good composure, intelligent, all of that stuff. Even though he doesn't have anticipation, he doesn't have too much else, he can score goals. Then it's a matter of just holding the game, closing it out, and then we've got a third goal. Hammer again, deflection and in. But his long shots, I think it's 15 that he's got. Those can be of big danger. And I love to keep a long shooter like him in a support midfield duty because that puts him in position to actually rattle off those long shots. After that, we had a really good 1-1 draw against Brighton. Let's just take a quick look at the stats for just a sec there. As you can see, we've done well. We've restricted them to just the 1 goal, even though they've had quite a bit of XG, 1.9. They had 3 goals disallowed for offside, so that was quite funny. Terrible shame to be them, but I'll take the point rather than no points, absolutely. And then we went to West Ham and we played them off the park. 67% possession and 1.38 XG versus 33% possession and 0.4 XG. And then they rounded it off by having Jared Bowen getting sent off in a very frustrated state of mind by the end of the game. Let's take a quick look at another Archer masterclass because he scored a goal and he set one up for McBurney as well. Archer, again, he has a second and he puts his foot through it. Thank you very much. Here's the assist now. Egan wins a header, McAtee to Archer, and then in for McBurney. Look at this for a goal. Little dribble and a lovely place shot. So that was cool. That's the kind of goal of a confident player. Not a world-class player, but a confident player. So at that point, after that West Ham win, I kind of looked at the league table and I thought, okay, we're probably not going to get too high. We're going to have to win all the remaining games to actually make a push for Europe. If we lose all the remaining games, we're not really getting into any trouble. So let's try and build for next season. Let's put a new tactic into place. Let's actually push for Europe by playing slightly more attacking football with a slightly more attacking formation. Let's say it failed, and it failed miserably. I lost 4-0 to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Then Tottenham came and gave me a thrashing. Everton then managed to win 2-4 against me. Everton then managed to beat me even though they were right down near the bottom of the table. To be fair, that could have been a motivation thing. At this point, after the 3 losses, I thought, okay, let's just chill out. Let's go back to the older tactic. We went against Man City and we held them. Unfortunately, Manchester City at this point were leading by 9 points. All they needed was this draw away at Sheffield to win the title. So I had to endure Manchester City lifting the Premier League title right there with that 0-0 draw. Talk about disheartening. Looking at the match stats though, this was kind of an acid test for me, and I was kind of happy with that. When Manchester City doesn't even manage 1 XG against you, you're kind of okay. They only had the one big chance really up here. That was a bit of a miss, but that was it. It was a completely boring game, and I loved it. As you can possibly see from the notable events as well, I may have tried to kick them off the park, because, you know, and I did actually have a disallowed goal, but c'est la vie. We then got thrashed by Manchester United. Unfortunately, I think it was a Rat Boy masterclass. Yep, he got a hat-trick, all of them from the left side of the goal. Let's actually have a look at them. I was really not happy with this, but it was, I think, all from the left-hand side. He was coming in from the inside left channel. Look at him in space over there. Bang, 1. Now here it comes from the left-hand side again. Højlund to Rashford. Once more Fernandes. Lots of space to get into. Bang. 2. And then up the left they come again. Shaw and Mount and Bruno in lots of space again. And bang. 3. So obviously I should have taken action after the first one. But at this stage of the season, I was kind of in don't really care mode. As you can see here, I'm using a different formation. After the Manchester City draw, I went back to this formation to see if I could just work on it a little bit more. But as you could see from the goals that Bruno Fernandes, whatever his name is, he scored, this formation needs a little bit of work, or possibly a little bit of work. And again, I did try and kick them off the park, but this time it didn't work. And we finished the season off with a 1-1 draw against Newcastle. This was actually a really great game. Lots of chances for both sides. I was kind of surprised it finished 1-1 with an XG of 2 for each. As you can see here on this graph, that's a lot of chances near the end of the game. Both teams could have, maybe should have won it, but mine was actually cool because I was really struggling for a goal during that game. And it came right at the end. Spoiler alert. So Newcastle went ahead first. Baldock cleared it, and then Hall came in on that left-hand side. I did concede quite a few goals in that particular manner with the left-hand side. Again, though, I did say I had the left side open, or at least I had some spaces open for this formation. But this was cool. We were just throwing everything into it. And again, Archer pops up right in front of the goal with the tap-in. So that was our season. Some fantastic performances, some fantastic stories, such as Tom Davies scoring against Everton. Cameron Archer just scoring every single chance he had, basically. If we look at our squad just a little bit, you'll notice that I haven't changed absolutely anything. I have sold a couple of players, I think, potentially even not. There haven't been any kind of transfers of note. I'm playing with the players I got. Gerbic is a goalkeeper who you get in January if you play real world Sheffield United, so he kind of stepped straight into the first team. He was a big game changer for me. Immediately an upgrade on Fotheringham. Cameron Archer was absolutely electric, even though I managed to call him Joffre a few times. Ryan Brewster kind of disappointed me a little bit, even though his stats are good. His work rate holds him back a little bit, and I think he's not terribly consistent in terms of personality. So he might be one that I move on in favor of a little bit of money to get a player who maybe doesn't look as good as he does, because that technique 15, finishing 16, determination 16, anticipation's there, bravery's there. He's got acceleration, agility. I couldn't make him work, not really. He didn't have the rhythm because he was injured, Every time he got injured, Archer would step in, and then Archer gets injured, he steps in. I did enjoy having him because he stepped into my, let's have a look at tactics, my DLF role as well as my P role, my poacher. He could play both positions. He wasn't quite as good at DLF because he doesn't quite have the work rate, but he was pretty good at poacher. Then again, Archer was just a superior poacher, and McBurney was a superior deep-lying forward. It was that simple. Tactics again, as with me, I kept it very, very simple. This was actually a little bit different. I changed that in the last couple of games. This is how the tactic was for the most of the season, and low was also a wing-back attack. I was just chopping and changing a few things later on just to play with different dynamics and so on as I'm planning for Season 2. And this guy over here was a carrilero as well. So those are the changes I made right at the end, but the formation stayed the same. So essentially the idea here is to have lots of players in this midfield area, have the deep lying forward dropping into the midfield area to have short passing combinations here, get the central midfielder going into that area, so essentially having them swap positions and McAtee run past, but also have the option, because the poacher is so high, to play that through ball, so through ball like that. McBurney as well would play link-ups, through balls, and drop the ball out to Baldock on the right and then make runs into the box. So it worked pretty well. My problem was playing against the 4-2-3-1 formation because this is so midfield heavy. When the opposition were also midfield heavy, I lost my midfield overload, and then it became a matter of qualitative. And I didn't have a qualitative overload of players, unfortunately. If you go back to positional play, that's kind of what Manchester City do as well. They overload you in terms of numbers. They try and get more players in certain areas, and then they overload you in terms of quality. They try and get the best-in-class players in those particular areas. So ideally, their winger is going to be better than your fullback. That's the Manchester City thing. I was able to overload the middle of the park with these 4 players here and the DLF dropping in, so I was almost like a 5 in midfield at certain times, and then have the unmarked guys running wide. That was really the basis of the tactic. I'll tell you why in just a sec. So I was kind of having positional play in my head with the midfield overload, but I could not get a qualitative overload. That's why I was also saying that the benchmarks of 14s and 15s were really, really valuable and very apparent, because from a qualitative point of view, you will see a 15 work in Football Manager a lot better than a 12. So why did I start off? I think I already explained George Baldock, why I was going with him as a primary creator. Bogle is his backup or his alternate and kind of profiles similarly. Not quite as good on the mental side of it, but equally or even maybe a tiny bit better on the technical side of it. A better dribbler, same kind of pace, maybe a little bit quicker even. And therefore, it was always going to be wingback attack on the right-hand side. And that's why in my kind of updated formation that I was trying in the last couple of games, you saw that wingback attack on the right-hand side was staying constant, because I had 2 players who I thought could fulfill that role, and for me that's good enough in a squad building point of view. Having 2 guys who can do that job, okay, it's set. That's the position. Left hand side was a little bit more up in the air, but I started with wingback attack because you get a guy called Yasser Larouci. Where's he gone? I think I might have thrown him in my under 21s. Let's take a look. Yes, he's in my under 21s right now. Just from a squad building point of view, I just wanted to get the guys who won't be there next season. I wanted to get them out. But Larouci, as you can see, he's played 21 games in the Premier League, 7 sub appearances, XG 1.27, XA 1.65. So not great, but his average rating has been 6.84. So I looked at him and I thought, okay, I need to play a wingback attack here as well, because he has 15 acceleration, 15 pace, decent crossing and dribbling, but good teamwork and work rate. That's the only reason he was getting wingback attack. It's because of his speed up and down the flanks and his work rate. As you can see though, his output wasn't brilliant, but most of the time, a lot of the play was going down my right-hand side because of the overload, really. McBurney was usually a DLF on this side, and therefore most of the play was building up on this side. That's why, again, I was trying to play with a wingback support on this flank. If you play Sheffield United, you will see that Low, this guy here, who for me is the best left back in the squad, those stats are pretty good. Again, decent enough to play a wingback attack, although probably more of a wingback support. He starts off injured, I think, for 3 or 4 months, and then Norrington Davies, his backup, I would say, although, again, a very similar profile kind of player. This guy's injured for even longer. So then you get Larouci in on loan, and there's another guy, Luke Thomas, who comes in on loan as well. Thomas didn't get any games at all. Larouci was the primary left back, and then when Lowe started getting fit, he took over slowly. never mind. Just taking a quick look at low stats here. His XA is 2.63 and he's played less games than Larouci. So you can see immediately that he was an upgrade on Larouci. My center backs were bog standard. Keeper was a sweeper keeper. Gerbic is actually really good because he's good at commanding his area and dealing with anything up in the air. Jumping 17, aerial reach is 15. Do I need to upgrade him going forward? Probably not. His positioning is 16 as well. The only things where he isn't a real class keeper for me is his agility, which is 12. I would like that ideally to be a little bit higher. So I might have personally not signed this guy had I seen him on the transfer market and needed to buy a goalkeeper. Because of that 12 agility, I generally like it a bit higher. Reflexes is 14 again, maybe a jot lower than I would want in a transfer that I'm going to do. But for Sheffield United and for players that the computer has given you or real world scouting has given you, absolutely fine. I don't think I need to improve on him the next season. Centre backs, Sheffield normally plays a back three. I have gone with a back four with two centre backs. I've only gone with Ahmedhodzic and Egan. They played basically the whole season together because of their jumping. Chris Basham's jumping is a little bit low at 13, so his pace also wasn't quite there. Jack Robinson isn't the best in the air as well, even though I love this guy. Jack Robinson's such a great player. Former Liverpool lad as well. In the game against Sheffield United and Liverpool real life some months ago, I remember that the Sheffield United crowd was saying a few, let's say, unsavory things, and Jack Robinson turned to them and went, "Hey, I'm a Scouser too." Was kind of cool to see. But as much as I like him, I didn't really find that much space for him in this team. Reason was his jumping, but he did play as a reserve centre-back. Unfortunately, he didn't play many games. He just got on the field 8 times. Still, professional guy, good attitude. He wasn't making too much of a fuss, which was really cool. So really good squad player to have. To be fair, when he was on the field, he didn't make a single mistake. As you can see, last 5 games, 7.22. So his performance level was good. It was really good. So maybe if I do this again, if I start with Sheffield again, I don't think I will, but if I do it again, I'd probably play Jack Robinson a lot more. Then again, Ahmedhodzic and Egan are just standout centre-backs. They're very, very good. Look at those mentals on Ahmedhodzic. Along with the jumping of 15, he's got dribbling 11, first touch 12, so he can play the ball a bit. He can pass. He's got vision 14. Very much a ball-playing player, but I kind of wanted to keep possession. One of my kind of weapons with this tactic was to keep possession of the ball. That's why I had him as a centre-back. I've also got take fewer risks on this guy as well as this guy. Egan as well, kind of similar profile, maybe not as good a ball player, but a very, very solid defender. My player of the season, though, is this one, Oliver Norwood. DMD the whole season, but he was first choice. Let's just take a quick look at him. He's kind of okay. His physicals are regressing because he's, 33 years old now? But his technicals are good, and what set him apart was 15 passing, 14 vision. Nobody else in this club kind of had that kind of passing and vision. Ahmedhodzic, yes, but centre-back. Oliver Norwood from defensive midfield had that passing. And that was really helping my team tick because number one, he would come deep to get the ball, he dictates tempo, and he likes to switch ball to wide areas. So this was perfect for the central overload. We keep the ball in the middle, and then when Lowe and Baldock get up the field, Norwood was just pinging the ball out to them. So he was really central to my tactic, an incredibly important player for me. And I think if this was real life, end of season, I would be sitting down in my manager's office, pulling out the bottle of whiskey, having a nice long drink and raising it to Oliver Norwood. My player of the season, because of all those player traits, plus the passing and the vision, and obviously a very solid player. No real weaknesses aside from physical, but that wasn't much of a problem because he was surrounded by other players. He had enough bodies around him so that the physical thing didn't really matter too much. That said, he wasn't that quick closing down attacks. Maybe a slightly more physical defensive midfielder would help me going forward. For that reason, and the fact that his physicals are really declining, look at that strength go down, pace going down, agility going down, he is unfortunately not getting a new contract. So Ollie Norwood is going to be leaving on a free transfer, even though for me he's been the linchpin of this tactic. Going forward, again, I explained the central midfield of the poacher, the deep lying forward. We've had two Carrileros just backing up, making up the numbers in the midfield, but also backing up the flanks, providing a bit of width, closing down when oppositions get out there. So important players, hardworking players were needed in these roles. In terms of instructions, again, I was keeping it simple. We were playing a mid-block, not too much pressing. So one of the advantages I had, and I think I showed you a couple of late goals, a few comebacks from my team, That's because our condition was really good. Come the 65th, 70th, 75th minute, we were in much better condition than our opposition, who were trying to press hard the whole game. And then we were able to turn it on. When I was chasing a goal or something like that, I'd switch to attacking like this. I would then increase the passing and the tempo one jot. I'd keep play out of defense because I wanted my tactic to hold. And then I would go for counter press. I'd go to out of possession. I would go more pressing. I would go prevent GK distribution, sometimes get stuck in and drop off more alongside a high press and a super high line. So something like this and this and this and this and this when I was chasing a game. Obviously, I'd go in here and I'd drop that as well. So keeping it pretty simple, but really being aggressive, and that allowed me to get a couple of good late goals. But the center point of the tactic is really possession. And for possession, I felt that I needed to maintain a balanced mentality. And this dropping the tempo one slot, that really helped me out in home games. Getting those big 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 wins was because of this. We were able to keep possession a lot more, carve out chances much better. However, away game performance, I felt like this was a better configuration for me just to get the ball forward fast enough through that crowded midfield. That being said, against a 4-2-3-1, I lost every time. So just taking a look at my squad, if we go to average ratings and sort it out like that, Cameron Archer did really well. Gerbic, as we said, was a big upgrade and he was a fantastic keeper. Ahmedodzic, Egan, key players as well. Foderingham did pretty well while he was around, to be fair. Hammer was solid at 6.97. Tom Davis obviously stand out at 7.13. Max Lowe did well. George Baldock did really well as well. So kind of the quality was really showing the better players. I don't think I showed you Hammer. Look at that. Really, really, really solid attributes all around. Plus the 15 long shots. That was huge. Maloney McAtee also played most of the season here. He'll go back to Man City. I played him as a central midfielder attack because decent passing, decent vision, good technique, very good movement, stats, stuff like acceleration, agility, balance, very, very good dribbling as well. So he made a lot of sense as a central midfielder attack, even though he's not quite there with the finishing. 12 long shots and 12 finishing. So he's not a striker and he didn't really score that many goals. He got a couple, I think. If we take a look at him, he got 3 goals and 4 assists, but I was playing him kind of for the assists. As you can see, he got those 4 assists. So that's why he made the team. All right, let's go into the end of season review to close this thing out. Okay, not quite to close this out, but let's have a look at it. These are all the arrivals. As you can see, none of these are done by me. These are all what the game has given me. Early on in the game, you get guys like McAtee on loan. You get Slimani and Souza and Hammer. That's kind of why I was playing a midfield-heavy tactic, because I would get so many midfielders. Davis as well, so it's really a midfield rebuild in there. Archer got his job done as well, and Sam Curtis is actually really good. For a 100k fee, check out these stats. This guy is mad. He's got good enough jumping that he could be a centre-back, and he is capable at centre-back as well if you look at his quote-unquote character sheet, but he's also got decent stats to be a right-back. So very, very cool kind of player. Just 18 years old. I don't know what his potential is, but he's a very cool backup signing to have and a kid to kind of train up a little bit. So very, very interesting, promising prospect. As we get into the season's results, the game tells me that we were a surprising package. It was great. The initial expectation obviously was to avoid relegation or try to avoid it. So we did really well there. Cameron Archer, as you can see, got 12 goals in the Premier League. And the supporters were happy to achieve a top half finish. Gee, I hope so. Man City obviously were crowned champions. Liverpool came second with 88. Arsenal third with 84. Tottenham in the Champions League. And Chelsea in the Europa League. Manchester United in the Conference League. Fantastic. Everton were able to beat the drop despite their 10-point penalty. Obviously, the change of penalty to 6 points, I think, that has happened in real life is not in Football Manager. So that is something you might have to edit if you want to start a new game. Maybe that'll help. Still, they were able to beat the drop by just 2 points. Brentford as well, beating it by 2 points over Crystal Palace and Luton with 29. So Crystal Palace, for me, the surprising ones. Burnley were shocking. They had, I think, 2 points for the first 15 games or so, but then they picked it up later in the season, which was credit to them. But this draw here that I have against Burnley on the 6th of November, that was their 2nd point. So they'd got all the way into November with just the 1 point. Crazy. Still, they were always going to go down. Crystal Palace is the one that I might go into and actually try and raid a little bit. A lot of their players might be out of my ballpark when it comes to transfer budget, but we'll get there in a sec. Still, might be worth it. There's a couple of interesting guys like Elise and Eze. So going into moments to remember, our biggest win was a 4-0 against Burnley. I think I showed you that one. Match to remember was the 2-0 against Arsenal, which I showed you in my previous video. And goal of the season is Cameron Archer against Wolves, which again, I showed you already. Going over to finances. No change in club reputation, which I'm a little bit surprised about, but there you go. Everything else looks good. Shirt sales 14,000, merch sales whatever. How you lined up was this. I showed you this being our main formation. These were the players who played the most games. And into accolades. Fans Player of the Season, as I guessed, was Tom Davis. Young Player of the Season, Cameron Archer. A bit surprising there because he's 22. Didn't know he was 22. Thought he was older. Signing of the season is Anis Slimana. That was a shocker. To be fair, I didn't play Anis Slimana very much. He was kind of a McAtee reserve. And to be fair to the guy, he scored lots of goals. I think 4 or 5 goals with headers in the box as I was chasing games. He has a jumping score of 14, and he was doing kind of a Michael Ballack thing by making a run into the box and getting on the end of a cross from the fullback. So it makes sense that the fans really like him because he scored all those big vital goals. Hilariously, one of our ball winners wins the highest average rating and the player of the match and the fans player of the year. Pass completion is John Egan, fair enough. And we go into history in the making. Obviously, lots of compliments here about my early season form. Manager timeline is fun. As you can see, I've got Mike Phelan in as assistant manager. I did a lot of changes in the backroom stuff. I had a new head of youth, new assistant manager, a bunch of new coaches, all of those things. And this one tells you that I've actually done a little bit of business for the season going forward. If I just jump into staff, I can show you a couple of the meme moves that I've made. I hired a director of football called Michael Edwards. Yes, if you follow football news, you probably will know a little bit about this guy. He's kind of credited for building Liverpool over the last 10 years into what they are now, although he left them a couple of years ago to do his own thing. He's now back. He's signed on again to help the post-club era. I think he works as now, or he's supposed to start working as a football CEO for the Fenway Sports Group, which owns Liverpool. So he's not quite a Liverpool employee, but an employee of their owners and answering directly to the chairman of the board and stuff like that. At 44, 45 years old, this guy is incredible. He's got the most incredible executive career. So very much a role play signing since I'm doing most of the contracts. So he's kind of just getting a big fat salary right now in this game and not doing anything with it. 5.75k per week feels like a big bargain for Michael Edwards. Not gonna lie. I also, to join Edwards, picked up somebody else as I scroll through my scouts. Chief Scout, Julian Ward, who was Michael Edwards' number 2, I think, at Liverpool as they were building that project. Look at all of his knowledge stats here. Extensive knowledge in a whole bunch of countries. So this guy, I actually recommend that you sign him if you are able because he's a free agent on the game. All right, going into transfers of actual players. We've got 3 signings confirmed. We've got Felipe Ralvas. First of all, he is coming in to provide a little bit more depth at centre-back. As you can see, he's a really good header of the ball. He's got some work rate about him. Very good in the air. He can, importantly, read the game. 16 anticipation and 14 positioning is fantastic. For me, the likes to switch ball to wide areas was a big draw as well. He's not the fastest though, so that's a slight weakness in his game. He's also not terribly technical. His first touch, his dribbling, they're not quite there. So this guy is a dead set standard centre back, which I'm completely fine with. Adds a little bit of aerial ability. He might be pushing Jack Robinson to 4th choice centre back in the squad. Next up is Ibrahima Sissoko, and this guy is a total monster. Again, I'm increasing the aerial power of the team. Jumping 16, strength 16. He's got work rate, he's got bravery, he's got heading. He can actually play ball. He's actually a defensive midfielder and midfielder center. So he's more in that ball-winning mold, although he can do a job at centre-back. If we look at that, he is competent at centre-back. So emergencies, he can drop in there, but I will be using him most probably as some kind of ball-winning midfielder. He's also very good in the air, though, so he's going to add to that aerial threat that we can provide at set pieces. The last signing, I mentioned Oliver Norwood so many times, and the fact that he is leaving on a free, this is going to be his replacement. We've got our passing 15, vision 15, very good technique, a little bit of tackling as well. He's got good first touch. He's got anticipation. He's not the most big or strong or powerful of lads, but he can dictate tempo from the middle of the park. Daniel Bragança from Sporting. This has been my choice to replace Ollie Norwood in the center of that midfield, or even at the base of that midfield. So those are the three guys who are going to pull these strings. Nobody's really confirmed to go out yet. I've rejected an offer for Trusty, who I've actually sent out on loan. He's probably good enough to play at centre back for Sheffield, but again, kind of borderline. And Ahmedodzic and Egan were completely fit through the whole season. I saw absolutely no reason to let them out of the first team. So just jumping into my scouting center for a little bit to look at some of the players that I'm really looking at. My scouting recommendations are giving me this guy, Thiago Almada, who's very, very technical. I think most of you would have seen him on your scouting reports. He's very up for leaving Atalanta United, and I remember playing Liverpool saves and getting his name up there as well. So he's obviously a high potential player. He is, I think, available for something like 13.75 million. So it's a very high likelihood that I will pick him up as well. He can play in that central midfield, attacking, playmaker kind of dude. I might be able to change formation as well and play this guy as a left winger or right winger, maybe as an advanced playmaker on the wing. So this guy, I think 90% I would go for him. Just jumping through my scouting focuses here, this fella is very interesting. If you've been playing Football Manager for a while, you probably know who this is. Lorenzo Luca. Absolute giant of a man, jumping 18, heading 17, strength. He's got a bit of pace about him as well, so he's not slow. He's got passing 12, vision 12, which is not great, but he might be able to do a really good job at target man support. The only thing I don't like about him really is low aggression. I would like a target man to have a bit more aggression, but he's got everything. He plays with back to goal as well. So this might be a big pickup from me. I'm scouting him to try and get an idea of asking price, but the transfer value here is really low. 6.8 to 9.6. If we look up here, I've got a transfer budget of 38. So if I manage to get Almada for something like 13, I can get Luca and then have a little bit more cash to play with. So those are the two that I'm really looking at. It's Luca and Almada. I do have a few good young players as strikers. So if I pick up Luca, I might have to sell somebody, probably Brewster. And by picking up Almada, I might be able to spend on a couple of wingers maybe and develop some kind of 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 formation, which may be a little bit more usable when I come into tactics that I don't like, or if I need a bit more pace, direct play, something like that. The formation I'm using right now won't work. So going into season 2, I might actually look, especially if I pick up Luca, I might actually look at getting maybe 2 right wingers. With Almada as an option on the left wing, I'm sure a couple of my guys can play here and there as backups. Maybe Osula and Jebison, I think they're fairly versatile, so I might be able to play them on the wing as inside forwards. Osula, for example, can play both positions. His crossing isn't great, so he's got the speed to run up and down, but not really the technical ability to do much with the ball. That said, he can provide cover in case of injury, so wing play is kind of an option. Let's put it like that. So that's that. That's my Sheffield United rebuild, guys. For now, season 1, job done. We've stayed in the Premier League, got a top half finish, and we are set for success. So, question I have to you is, should I play one more season for you guys and capture it like this? Question number 2, do you have any signings for me? Any recommendations of players who I can pick up? Like I said, I'm kind of thinking about a couple of wingers, but I'm open to ideas. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, talk to you in the comments below. Cheers!